We're back, and of course we are live on X Spaces, on YouTube and Facebook. As usual, you can drop your comments there. We'll share it with the rest of the world. This is the Pulse here on Joy News. Independent, fearless, and credible. My name is Elton Broby. Well, this afternoon, the John Mahama-led administration is moving to introduce legislation, in fact, a legislative instrument that would establish new rules for the removal of Supreme Court and other Superior Court judges. The announcement was made on the floor of Parliament by the Majority Leader, Mahama Yariga, amid an ongoing process to remove the Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono. That process, currently underway, has drawn sharp criticism from the opposition MPP, which claims it is a deliberate attempt by the NDC to oust the Chief Justice unfairly. We'll hear from Mahama Yariga shortly on what government plans are to protect this particular office. But first, here is Deputy Minority Leader Patricia Piaget, who has described the move as shameful, an effort to undermine judicial and stuck the Supreme Court with NDC loyalists.
Vicious attempt by the presidency to undermine judicial independence have reached dangerous proportions. The nation watched in disbelief as the executive launched brazen efforts to remove the Chief Justice of the Republic. An assault not merely on one officer holder, but on the very sanctity of the judicial branch. At the same time, the president is seeking to pack the Supreme Court with loyalists. 7 nominations in one swoop, clearly designed to bind the hands of the Judicial Council and tilt the highest court in the land towards executive interest. Equally troubling is the identity of the legal practitioners leading this crusade. While the right to counsel is sacrosanct and every citizen is entitled to legal representation of their choosing, it is profoundly disquieting that the lawyers spearheading the campaign against the Chief Justice are individuals publicly known to have represented or are still representing both the President and the Speaker of Parliament in active legal matters.
All right, so this is the opening remarks from the minority side as Parliament, is back in the House today to begin government business. Now, the Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, Kwaku Asante, joins me on via Zoom. So, Kwaku, I'm curious to know the Majority Leader's explanation for these new rules that government is seeking to introduce to Parliament.
Like a bombshell that the Majority Leader did drop, because the Constitution provides in Article 146 specifically the rules that will lead to the removal of a Chief Justice or Justices of the Superior Court. And so in his opening remarks, and one would be open to accepting that that was sort of a response to Patricia Piaget's claims about the NDC seeking to pack the court with NDC loyalists. He dropped that shell that the Attorney General is expected to lay legislative instrument, constitutional instrument, or that will enact new rules that will guide the removal of judges from the Superior Court. As you know, Article 146 introduces specifically what the rules will be, and the courts have, on a number of occasions, also interpreted what those rules are about. And so he does not say specifically whether this will come by way of a constitutional amendment, because Article 146 is an entrenched provision, and if you want to change any part of it, you would have to go through a referendum for that change to become law. But listen to the Majority Leader himself in his own words, explaining what he says is the commitment of the President to ensure that the judiciary is not actually easily dealt with or, in their own words, removed from office.
By the time we finish passing these bills, the legal architecture of Ghana would have received a significant overhaul. Right, Honorable Speaker, the Attorney General will also introduce several subsidiary legislation. They include the corporate insolvency and restructuring regulations, the Court of Appeal rules, Economic and Organized Crime Office Operations Regulations, Economic and Organized Crime Office Terms and Conditions of Service Regulations, High Court Civil Procedure Amendment Rules, Interpretation Regulations, Judicial Service Terms and Conditions of Service Regulations, Legal Aid Commission Regulations, Supreme Court Rules, and very significantly, removal from office of justices of the Supreme Court rules. The President, John Dramani Mahama, is determined to fast-track legislative reforms to strengthen our institutions of governance and further entrench our democracy. The President is committed to legislative clarity with transparency when it comes to the constitutional mechanics of the removal of justices of the superior courts.
So I wonder whether there's already been reaction to this proposal by Mahama Yariga to the floor.
On the floor, while he made these remarks, the minority, obviously, and some of the MPs, as we hear from the video, they shout, and some of them were thinking about, they're a bit surprised about this. But because he was the last leader on his feet to speak, there was no rebuttal really from the minority front bench or any person for that matter from the minority side, except that later on the speaker himself did make his opening remarks where he spoke generally about issues having to do with Parliament and national issues. He did not touch on this removal of Superior Court judges. But this is certainly something that we'll be hearing something from the minority on, perhaps in the days ahead or even today, because it will be interesting to see how exactly are these rules fashioned and how will they sit in tandem with the Supreme Court. Will this merely be legislative instruments, LIs, CIs, and other subsidiary legislations, which will be subservient to the Constitution of the Republic, or the government intends to amend the Constitution to take the process that has been outlined in Article 146 of the Constitution? So yes, officially no response yet from the minority or any person for that matter in Parliament, and this is something that will certainly draw reaction. Except that earlier today, I did speak to Vincent Ekwase, a member of Parliament for Old Trafford, who did go to the Supreme Court a couple of weeks back, challenging the processes to remove the Chief Justice. His judgment is out, that 80-page judgment that has simply been in circulation for the last few days. He did say that he was going to study that ruling and decide what exactly he would do, whether he will seek review or not. He says he's still consulting. But he was reacting to my question about the new affidavits that have been deposed by the suspended Chief Justice about some mental ordeal that she said the committee investigating the matter is subjecting her to. And she said, and he, I should say, says that it is clear from all that is happening and from the affidavits deposed to by the Chief Justice that they are setting on the handling to simply get Madam Tokoro out of the way, and she's not going to get a fair trial from that Parliament committee chaired by Justice Gabriel Scott Foreman.
I don't see why a Chief Justice will appear before a committee and he will be searched like a petty criminal. Meanwhile, the lawyers who are representing the petitioners are not searched. The lawyers who are representing the petitioners are given the free will to be able to take in their phones, their laptops. The indication is that they have some information on it. But the Chief Justice does not have the right and authority to bring information that is on her laptop or her phone to the committee. It cannot be a fair procedure. It cannot be a fair treatment.
So your understanding of all that is that there's clearly some attempt to gag or to unfairly remove the Chief Justice, or what do you see from that?
I have maintained right from the beginning of this process that the process is fraught with unfairness. There are a lot of procedural improprieties, and it looks as if somebody has made up his mind that by hook or crook, the Chief Justice will have to be removed.
Of course, Vincent Ekwase will join us pretty soon as we explore the latest twist to this ongoing process to probe the Chief Justice for allegation of misconduct. But before I let you go, just a matter that is not entirely related to this Chief Justice, but I heard Mahama Yariga make the point on the floor in his opening remarks that the Speaker should, in the matter relating to some comments Parliament deemed, derogatory relating to the former late President John Rawlings, Mama Yaga makes the point that all backbenchers around the space that this, comment came from should be held responsible and made to appear before the Privileges Committee. Did the Speaker rule on that?
We know that it was last meeting that comments were made. That comment, the Death of America comment. We recall that the Speaker of Parliament gave the said Member of Parliament, whose identity we do not know yet, 1 week to reveal himself. And as of now, 2 months on, no one has come forward to say that he was the one. You heard there the majority leader rightly say, like you said rightly, that they are very incensed about that comment, and they're not going to let it go. They are insisting that if the Member of Parliament who made those comments do not come, they believe the comment came from a certain direction, and that group of people must all be held responsible by being sent to the Privileges Committee of Parliament to answer questions. The Speaker of Parliament, while he was making his comments, also did take aim at that and said that Parliament was still investigating the matter, and that for him personally, it is disappointing that the Member of Parliament has not come forward, and also that no one in Parliament seemed to know who made that comment. He says it's very disappointing that MPs can claim that they do not know who made those comments, and that he, as head of the legislature, will continue to investigate this matter to the very end. He says, and in fact, back in the point Mahama Yariga made, that the comments were made, and in fact, he zoomed into 3 members of Parliament, he said, sat at a particular place in the minority benches. He actually said that when those comments were made, the minority leader, Alexander Penny-Markin, who at the time was on his feet, did turn his head to look at the second member of Parliament. And so he's surprised that neither members on the minority side or even the majority side who are facing these MPs have been able to come forward to name specific persons who must be investigated for this. But he says he's committed to investigating this to the very end.
So it's first day in Parliament and already so many things to chew on. Kwaku, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And of course, this afternoon we are spending so much time on the matter relating to the suspended Chief Justice and matters that are coming out as a result of the ongoing process. Now, Gertrude Tokonu has described the ongoing investigation by the Gabriel Pwaman-led committee to potentially remove her from office as unjust and a blatant mockery of justice. In a supplementary affidavit filed at the Supreme Court registering support of a motion for an interlocutory injunction, Justice Gertrude Tokonu expressed concern over what she termed persistent violations of her constitutional rights and a sustained assault on judicial independence. The Attorney General, Dominic Ayine, has swiftly rejected all her demands, and we will share that with you shortly. But first, let me bring you the details of the CJ's affidavit for interlocutory injunction filed at the Supreme Court. So there you have it on your screens, and she's making certain demands. She says, I respectfully seek leave of this honorable court to bring to the court's attention various developments since the filing of the present application, which evidence a complete desecration of my basic constitutional rights to a fair trial, violation of my dignity, and subjection to inhuman and degrading treatment of a kind not meted out to even accuse persons on trial for treason and other offenses against the state. And he says, I was informed by my lawyer, Kwabena Adukusi, that the proceedings of the committee set up by the president to inquire into the 3 petitions filed against me had been adjourned to a day after the commencement of our action in this honorable court, that is the 22nd of May, 2025. And then on the 22nd of May, he says, I appeared before the committee together with my lawyers and informed the committee members of the suits I had instituted against the Attorney General and the committee members, in response to which the committee requested to receive copies of the processes filed and adjourned proceedings to the following day, Friday, 23rd May 2025. And so on the 23rd of May, the day after, she says, notwithstanding receipts of the processes filed in the Supreme Court, including the application for interlocutory injunction, the members of the committee indicated their resolve to proceed with the conduct of the inquiry. And this was so according to, even though, he says, even though I have to date not been told the basis for the determination of a prima facie case against me and the specific allegations in respect of which a prima facie case has been established for me to answer, to enable me determine my legal rights or adequately prepare a defense to the charges against me. She goes on to say that the committee refused to recognize my counsel simply because I was not personally present, and proceeded to fix a subsequent hearing days and make arrangements for the hearing without involving my counsel, even though he was present. The committee, shockingly, according to her, simply refused to recognize the same counsel on whom it has served a hearing notice only a day before. Now, Getutokonu goes on to say that other developments like the denial of access into the hearing room for my husband and children, searches on my body, denial of access to telephone and laptops for myself and my lawyers, even though counsel for petitioners have access to their phones and laptops, and the conduct of the hearing itself in a highly security zone at the premises of the castle, Osu, shows a deliberate effort to subject me to mental torture and degrading treatment in violation of my fundamental rights. He says, all Article 146 proceedings, with the exception of the one I am being subjected to, had hitherto been held in judicial facilities, specifically the courts complex. The location of proceedings affecting me to a cordon high security facility boggles the mind. And he said the persistent violation of my constitutional rights show that the whole proceedings initiated against me are a mockery of justice and a ruse to unjustifiably remove me from office as the Chief Justice. And she is praying the court intervention by the grant of an injunction to prevent the assault on judicial independence and protect the security of tenure of the Chief Justice and justices of the Superior Court of the Republic. And so this is what Getutokonu in an affidavit has presented to the court with the hope that she will get a response. Well, the Attorney General, Dominic Anine, has a quick response for the suspended Chief Justice and a lot of things that the Attorney General has been saying in response to what the Chief Justice Getutokonu in that affidavit presented to the court. And amongst them, the AG says that the in-camera hearing is a constitutional command geared at safeguarding not only the CJ but the entire judiciary. It can therefore not be waived. The AG said there is no basis in law for the two Supreme Court judges to be restrained from participating. And in concluding on this, the AG concludes that the case of injunction has not been made out. And so that's a response to the AG. But the court is yet to sit on this particular matter for us to have a conversation on it. Now it's a good time to bring in some legal brains for their perspective on this matter. Now joining me on phone, of course, privilege as always to have Mr. Kwaku Ansari, a former director of the Ghana School of Law. Mr. Ansari, good afternoon, and always a pleasure to have you here on the pause.
My pleasure to always. Good afternoon.
Right. Also joining us is Justice Abdullahi. We don't have him yet. We'll bring him on. But the Member of Parliament for Old Safo, Vincent Ekwasafwa, is also joining me via Zoom. Honorable Member, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Right.
Thanks for having me.
Great. So let me start with you, Mr. Ansari. What we are just learning this afternoon is that the majority leader has given indication that government may in the coming days present, it's unclear whether it's going to be a constitutional instrument to Parliament to guide the removal of Superior Court judges. What will be your response to this?
Well, thank you very much. I think it's a step in the right direction because so far the current CG removal process has attracted a lot of comments. And there are some people who are suggesting that we should have guidelines to guide any committee that may be set up by the president to probe the CJ. But I can only hope that it is not an ad hominem committee that is geared for the sole purpose of streamlining the removal process concerning leadership Getutokonu, and that it is going to be something that will be long lasting for the future, not to regulate, because at the time that Article 146 was triggered, there hadn't been any such law or regulation. So if CR is going to be passed, then it should be not only for this, but for the future, to be a guideline for the future, not for the present. Because at the time that the committee was established, there was no such CI.
And it's interesting because this is one of the main issues Mr. Ekwa Asafua and his lawyers went to court wanting to understand, the procedure. In fact, at the first hearing of this probe into the allegation of misconduct on the part against the CJ, we are told that the lawyers demanded to know the rules governing this particular exercise, and they didn't get any. Now, why is this coming at this time? Government has yet to provide justification, but what, in your estimation, could be the motivation behind this government move to have rules and regulations to govern the process?
I should like to believe that it's a step to accommodate the worrying concerns, of the public. We now have a divided opinion as to whether or not what is going on should have been begun in the first place. But I'm glad that at least the powers that be are listening to public opinion. It's so far so good. It's good for democracy. It's good for the country. It's good for independence of the judiciary. So that it's not only Justice Tokonu, but it is for justices of the Superior Court. And I should like to think also that it will be extended to cover personnel of the judicial service as well. As I said, it shouldn't be seen as something that is being passed solely, to provide some comfort, for what is going on. But that the government is a listening government and has considered so far the views, of cross-section of Ghanaians, and wants to do, what the society at large, perhaps, is expecting of the president.
All right.
If he's the president for the father, for everyone, he's listening and he's saying that we're going to initiate legislation, the form of a constitutional instrument to provide a framework, for the guidance of the CJ process. I think it should be better.
All right.
It shouldn't be seen to be targeted, as leadership to talk on.
All right. I'll come back to it because we have a lot to unpack on this particular matter. Let me bring in the Member of Parliament for Otafo in the Ashanti region, Vincent Asafua. He's also a legal practitioner. So, Honorable, you've heard your leader in the House. He says government will in the coming days present some rules. I don't know in what form that rules will come. Now, when I posted this on my X, the conversation around this, for example, one Kwame Asofie is saying that you want to remove this one, that's the current Chief Justice, and then lock the door. Is that the same vibe you are getting, Honorable?
I couldn't have agreed with him more. Of course, it's also a vindication of my earlier position that the framework within which a Chief Justice will have to be removed is simply not a perfect one. And if it is not a perfect one, of course, people who advocate for constitutionalism, people who advocate for literalism, people who advocate for the black and white of the letter of the Constitution will argue that that is what the Constitution is now. But I am of the opinion that it is a vindication of my earlier position because they themselves are agreeing to us that we don't have a perfect system, and for that matter, a purposive interpretation of the Constitution would have led to a reasonable conclusion. And so if they are saying that they are going to introduce a legislation in Parliament to regulate as to how a Chief Justice will have to be removed, it tells us that the Henrietta Mensah Bonsu kind of decision that she gave is one that we should probably go with. But of course, they have every right to bring the legislature to Parliament. When it comes, I'm sure the Constitutional and Legal Committee of Parliament will initially, if you like, deliberate on the legislation clause by clause and members of parliament will also have the opportunity, also on the floor of the parliament, to be able to also debate him. And if you like, make some amendment here and there. But it's a clear indication that we don't have a fair system, if you like, a perfect system as to the removal of the Chief Justice.
But again, I'm curious to know, I mean, you are a member of parliament, you are also a lawyer. I know that Article 146 is an entrenched position. So indeed, for education, what in your mind is government seeking to do exactly? Provide guidelines or what exactly?
Well, as we speak, I don't know what they seek to do. As I said, well, on the floor of parliament, I just heard the leader saying that they are going to bring a legislation to parliament to regulate, if you like, make some amount of amendment as to how the Chief Justice will have to be removed. My interest is that just the admission that they have to make an amendment, so if you like, they have to regulate how a Chief Justice will have to be removed, is a total admission that the system that we have is not a perfect one. It's not a perfect system because how a Chief Justice will have to be removed should be one that should have a very huge threshold. You should have a very huge threshold to the extent that in removing a Chief Justice, you should find it very difficult to remove a Chief Justice. It should not be on the basis of any frivolous or if like vexatious accusations or if like allegations against the Chief Justice. So we are waiting. It is on that basis that you've not really heard anything official from the minority side. We want to see how they want to go about this kind of, if you like, legislation that they want to introduce to the floor of parliament to see how such an amendment will go.
All right. Again, Mr. Ansari, I mean, now let's focus on this, affidavits, supporting affidavit that the suspended Chief Justice has filed at the Supreme Court, but virtually asking the court to come to her rescue. Now, she makes some very important points. One of them relates to what, in her estimation, could be discriminatory practices adopted by the 5-member committee that is probing her for allegation of misconduct. She makes the point that whilst counsel for the petitioners are allowed to use their phones and laptops during the committee sitting, she was denied that privilege. I mean, is this right?
No, I don't think it is right. You see, the Constitution in Article 17 frowns upon discrimination. And therefore, if parties appear before a committee and one particular party is giving certain privileges that will not be extended or accorded to the other party, I don't think it is nice. It is discriminatory and applies to the face of Article 17 of the 1992 Constitution.
But is she right to demand that her husband and kids are allowed into the committee room?
Elsewhere, this will be an issue at all because the spouse, the husband and wife, there's always some unity between husband and wife. And if the CJ, is appearing before a committee, I don't see what is wrong, in being accompanied by the husband. The truth of the matter is that no one knows the scope of the expression in camera. Whether it is relative to the proceedings, the venue of the proceedings, or that the secrecy disables spouses from accompanying the party or witness. So I think it's all maybe now that we are going to have a CI, streamlining the procedure. The time is right to consider this particular aspect. But I think that the husband wants to, accompany, or the wife wants the husband to accompany. I don't think the husband should be stopped or prevented from, being in attendance. He's going to be in attendance only. After all, the witness or party, is a spouse, of the man. So I think, the committee will have to reconsider the 12 stance and allow the husband to be there. It doesn't hurt. How is it going to hurt the committee if Sokonu's husband is in attendance.
I mean, Honorable Asafua, the Chief Justice concludes that this is a calculated steps by the committee to pronounce her guilty even before she appears before, in view of the challenges she's going through in presenting herself. Has she got a case here?
I think so. You see, the Chief Justice, is Chief Justice of the Republic. There are certain privileges.
But Honorable Asafua, if you can hear me, that question was actually for you.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, please go on.
Yes. So
yes.
Absolutely, I think that the Chief Justice, has a case. I mean, she has every reason to believe that this is an orchestrated attempt to remove her from office. Why? Because actions and inactions of even persons of the committee, as we speak, suggest that she's not going to have a fair procedure as far as the regulation of the committee and its actions are concerned. Why am I saying so? I had the opportunity to read the supplementary affidavit of the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice makes allegations that she enters into the room, she is searched like a common criminal. Lawyers of the petitioners are allowed free access to the room. In fact, they are allowed to enter the room with their laptops and their phones. The Chief Justice is not allowed. When the Chief Justice was appointed, or if was nominated and appointed by His Excellency the President, and when she was coming to Parliament for her vetting, she came with her beloved husband and probably the kids. On what basis is it that she's going to be removed? And there has not been any definition whatsoever that says how an in-camera will have to be done. And you see that she cannot have the moral support of her husband. Why are we seeking to incarcerate the Chief Justice? On what basis are we making such decisions? It has seemed that the decision has already been made. The committee is coming to the fore, if they are coming to the inquiry table with their decision already in their pocket, bent on making sure that they remove the Chief Justice. Other than that, I don't see why, even if you want to make sure that justice is served, you don't want to portray that justice is indeed served. You have to let Ghanaian people, you have to even let the Chief Justice be satisfied that justice has been served. In the event that she even feels that justice has not been served, even though the Constitution has not been made or stated clearly as to whether the Chief Justice may have a right of an appeal. But in my estimation, the Chief Justice, even after the recommendations of the committee, should have a right of an appeal to exhaust every kind of avenue to her.
Currently, doesn't exist.
In that instance, Ghanaians and other investigative community will feel that the right thing has been done.
But must she necessarily have a say in the venue for this kind of exercise? I mean, what is wrong with holding it at the Osu Castle?
There's nothing wrong with anybody choosing whatsoever venue. But what is your interest in fixing a venue at a highly security zone like the Osu Castle? As soon as you get there, the security apparatus and the security architecture that you see there even put some mental disorder on you. It puts some stress on your mental capacity. Why don't you have a friendly environment with a friendly forum whereby the Chief Justice with the husband and the kids, or if the children, will be able to have, a friendly opportunity to be able to head. As we speak, even the basis for forming a prima facie against the Chief Justice, on what basis she is now appearing before the committee, has not been given to the Chief Justice. How is she going to defend herself? She should be given enough opportunity, enough information to be able to prepare her defense, as it is stated under Article 19. As we speak, she's not having that. And it's an affront to rule of law. It's shameful, it's worrying, and it's troubling. This should not be happening.
Mr. Sassari, I mean, I asked Vincent about the venue and whether she should be involved in choosing where to have this particular sitting. She is clearly not happy with the fact that this proceedings is taking place at the Osu Castle, a former seat of government. I mean, should that be a concern at all? Should this one also be a matter for contestation?
I think it should be a matter of worrying concern, not only to talk of those lawyers, but to the whole nation. I keep reminding the public that the Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana And therefore, any treatment that will tantamount to indignity, to render her infra-day should, be discouraged. Now, if you look at Article 18, that deals, with fair trial, I should like to think that, considerations of public policy, public morality, health and safety. So if they choose a venue that is not going to be authentic, to attendance and other things, I don't see why the Chief Justice of the Republic, cannot have a say, in the venue of a trial. I think as far as that issue is concerned, the Chief Justice, has a case. And I think the committee must relax. The committee must be flexible enough to accommodate, the interests of both, parties, the petitioners as well as, the Chief Justice. Even though the Chief Justice is on trial, he is not an accused person to be treated just like any ordinary accused, person. The rules, of fair play, fair trial, must, be made and facilities, made available to her at all times. We should always bear in mind that it is the Chief Justice of the Republic, who is being proved, and not an ordinary, justice of either the lower court or the superior court. I'm glad that CI is going, to be prepared, to provide guidelines, way to serve the entire nation. Once that is done, and all these worrying concerns are situated, I think, we are getting somewhere. The whole world is watching us. We need not let them down.
And then finally, briefly, do you support her call that the entire process must be put on hold until the Supreme Court determine all the cases that is before it relating to this probe?
No, I have expressed a view, already, that I don't think that the process should be halted. Any attempt to halt it will, be unconstitutional. And if she brought an application, sometime like last week, I did point out that 3 or 4 applications have already been judicially considered,
right,
and a pronouncement has been made. So those pronouncements should guide any future application, in like manner. Under Article 129, Clause 3, like cases must be treated alike, and that is, the whole basis of the doctrine of stare decisis or judicial precedent. And we cannot, be indulging in this back and forth injunction game. It has not become like, table tennis, ball is on the table. And until the ball drops, the injunctions, keep flying here and there. So litigation must come to an end, and it is in the interest of not only the Lady Chief Justice, but the entire nation, that this whole controversy, this whole CJ removal process that has now engrossed in political controversy, will come to an end sooner rather than later.
All right, we'll leave it here for now, but this is a matter that is, developing. So, Mr. Asansari, former director of the Ghana School of Law, thank you so much for your time. Also, thank you so much, the Member of Parliament for Ota, for Vincent Okwasefua, for your contribution to this discussion. The latest on this matter is that government is preparing to put before Parliament rules that will govern the removal of Superior Court judges. The shape and form we are yet to be told. We'll wait and get the details, and then we can have a proper conversation around this particular matter. But happening now, somewhere in Tema, the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Linda Okulu, is spearheading a task force to demolish unauthorized structures built on the Ramsar site in Lashibi. The targeted buildings are located in waterlogged areas. The exercise aims to reclaim and preserve the Ramsar site, which serves as a crucial flood buffer and habitat for wildlife. Authorities have warned that construction in such zones exacerbate flooding. Affected residents have been given prior notice, with the government emphasizing the need to comply with zoning regulations. The demolition underscores the administration's commitment to enforcing environmental laws and preventing further encroachment. My colleague Kenneth Jesse joins us from the site where the demolition exercise is taking place with the very latest. So, Kenneth, tell us what is happening now.
Well, Elton, so the exercise has paused for some break, but this exercise has been ongoing since morning, and it's still going to continue. They've not told us when they will end, but we've been informed that this exercise is not going to end until all those structures that are at Ramsar sites are demolished. And of course, as you can see, there are a lot of security personnel here. If my cameraman can pan and show us the area, there are a lot of security personnel here. The Greater Accra Regional Minister, as you rightly mentioned, is also here. The Mayor of Tema, Ebi Bright, is here as well. The MC for Tema West is also here, and this is a joint task force which is also being done in conjunction with NADMO. We want to briefly engage the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Linda Oklu, who has been here all morning. We've spoken to her earlier, but we want to get an update on really what is happening here. So she's joining me now, Greater Accra Regional Minister Linda Oklu. Minister, you're live on Pulse on Joy News. This exercise has been ongoing since morning till now. What have you found?
Oh, today, in fact, we want to leave. We don't want to leave any stone unturned, and so all the houses here, we want to bring it down before we leave. And our machines, equipment are not enough, and so they are bringing some. That is why we are here. When they comes, we'll make sure that all these places, all the buildings will be down.
There's been talks about your preparedness. You saying that you don't have enough equipment. Does it mean that you didn't come prepared?
We came prepared. We came with enough of the equipment, but you notice this place is a waterlock, and so some of the equipment got stuck, and then we have to go and service it. And so it doesn't mean that we didn't come with enough equipment. We came, but because of the wetland, we had issues with some of the equipment. So they are working on it. We also had a flat tire, so the tires are there, they are working on it. So that's why we are here.
We see that the decongestion, demolition is concentrated around here. Was that the initial plan to do it here?
Not really. This is not the only place we are targeting. All the houses around we are targeting. But we want to finish with a particular site before we move. I mean, we are working with plans. We have the forestry site manager here, so he's leading us to where we should tackle first. So the entire place will be off my day. It's not just a particular building. We are not targeting only a particular building. As far as the building on the Ramsar site, they should be down.
Okay, Minister, I'll come back to you, but I see the new Tema Mayor here, Ebi Bright. You're live on Joy News. You are doing this in conjunction with the Greater Accra Regional Minister. So far, how has it been?
Well, it's a bit emotion fraught. It's difficult to do, but it must be done. It's sad to see how our lack of responsibility over time has resulted in this. At the end of the day, this is the cost of corruption and a lack of regard for the environment. It is costly, but the other costs are more. You know, the danger to lives and property of innocent people, and people are not complicit in this, and the degradation of, you know, the ecology just generally. So as difficult as it is, we have to do, but you see also that it's resource intensive, both of human resource and of, you know, capital as well. So it's not the best use of our day, but it must be done. So I would plead that going forward, people are more wary of people that are offering you deals, because what is not lawful will eventually catch up. You know, the consequences will catch up with you. We also have to commit resources to securing whatever land we've reclaimed, and also rehabilitating the space, because we can't leave the debris here after all of this, and we need to make use of it. We need to restore it to what it actually is supposed to be. So we're making a commitment to all of that. It's going to involve a lot of security, and it's going to involve a lot of concentration here. So we're committed to supporting His Excellency John Dramani Mahama in his vision for a cleaner, greener society. And so we're going to give our regional minister all the support that she needs.
Minister and Mayor, please don't go. I'll come back to you. Let me go to the Forestry Commission officer. The minister did mention that there's a map. You've drawn a map of the places that you're going to demolish, really looking at where you started from. Do you think it's a good place to have started from?
Yeah, I think it's a good place we have started from, because where we are currently is the main waterway that we are looking at. And the water all the way from the mountains, let's say from the mountains all down, all the water seeps down into the Ramsar site and then gradually goes into the sea. And so if we are blocking these parts, then there's a likelihood that even if the effect is not felt here, it will be felt at other places. So we are looking broadly at saving ourselves from all those issues. Apart from controlling flood, the area is environmentally important. It is also an important area for water birds' habitats. And so our noise we are doing and all that is because it is internationally recognized as the waterfowl habitat. And so migratory birds fly all over Europe to this place. They come to roost and then go back. Again, because it is important, we are looking at putting in facilities that would make sure that people would rather come here and tour rather than allowing people to encroach on the lands. This thing didn't start today. We have spoken severally. People have confronted us in many dimensions, but we always say that the right thing must be done once and for all. If we don't do it, we are always looking for problems in the nearest future.
Okay, thank you. Minister, let me come to you once again. When I spoke to you earlier, you said you came here about a month ago. Some of the structures were not here, and you came to meet them. Surprised?
Yes, very much surprised. And it's a question I keep on asking my engineers. And because when we left, the last time we left, we asked them to form a task force to be policing the place for us. I mean, for them to sit on concern for the structures to get to this point. I mean, it's surprise. And we have the newly MC here. This is his jurisdiction, right? And so, yes, Tema West, so he should brace. I don't know whether you've gotten briefings from your engineers, but they should tell us why the structures are up to this level. Because when we left, we told them, form a tax, we can't be everywhere. Are you getting it? So we will come and do our job. The rest of the job is for them to protect the place for us. And so when we come and do a demolition, we've not even finished. We are going to task them to continue with the exercise. So when we leave, we expect them to take care of the place for us. I mean, for us to come here and see the structures at this level, yeah, I'm surprised, honestly.
I see one structure there that looks like a church, and it appears that it's been there longer than most of the buildings. I'm asking myself, why is it still standing? Why hasn't it been demolished?
It will be done. They have a lot of equipment there. One of the members approached that we should give them up to tomorrow because, like I said, the exercise will continue tomorrow. So they will be packing up their equipment this evening. I mean, for her to come approach us, I mean, I think we should give her that respect so that they pack their things. And then tomorrow they will demolish the structure.
So how long are you giving her?
Oh, up to this evening. Tomorrow we'll be here to put the structure down.
And if you come tomorrow and nothing has changed, what happens?
Oh, my dear, I mean, we are here to demolish. So when we come and the equipment are still there, they said we should give them up to this evening. So we are giving them that benefit of doubt. Tomorrow when we come, our only mantle here or mandate here is to do the demolition. So tomorrow we will demolish the structure.
Let me get to briefly to the MC for Tema West, whose jurisdiction we are at the moment. You've also been on tour with the mayor and then the regional minister. Is there anything that you've seen so far that has shocked you?
Well, yes. Like the minister rightly said, these structures that we see here was not here the first time we came around. So seeing them now is a surprise to us, and I've tasked my engineers. We were not supposed to see these things here. How come they are still here? The last time they came here, they were driven away by land guards with arms. So what we are going to do going forward is to get them not to come alone, but with some security. Because once they come alone without security, these are guys, they are technocrats. They are not built to fight. They are built to supervise, to check, to regulate how structures are put up. So what we are going to do is to request some security so that when they come around to do the checks, they will not be in fear of the land guards.
Okay. All right, thank you. So Elton, you heard that okay.
Most of the problems we are seeing here is human actions. You will not know the definition of a property until you come to the municipal and we tell you the true definition of the property. Why invest so much on a waterway? Years later, after all the investments you've done, it will be pulled down. Because the effect of you putting up a property here is not only felt here, but it's even felt miles away. So we will plead with the general public, before you put up a structure, when you get a property, come for definition of the property.
Okay.
Then you can get the right permit before you start building.
Okay.
I think that would help us all.
Okay, MC, thank you very much. That's the MC for Tema West. Earlier, you heard us speak to the mayor of Tema, Ebi Bright. We also spoke to the Greater Accra Regional Minister, Linda Oklu, who say that they will leave no stone unturned until these structures that are at the Ramsar sites and in waterlogged areas are all demolished. So the exercise continues after all of them have gathered their arsenal and will continue until, as the minister mentioned earlier, every structure that is in the site of Ramsar site is demolished. So these are scenes that you see here at the Ramsar site at Lashibi, Elton.
How many have been pulled down so far? How many buildings? We're trying to see if we can get, we don't have him yet, so we'll leave it here. But the exercise, according to the minister and the MC, will continue tomorrow. Remember, the pulse is always brought to you by Defend Drill Cough Expectorant. It clears chest congestion, smoothes cough, and fight the common cold, helping you breathe easy and feel better. Defend Drill is available at all pharmacies and OTCs across Ghana. Not recommended, however, for children under 6 years. So for bulk purchase, please visit Rapid Improvement Pharmaceuticals on the Spinters Road next to the Royal House Chapel, or give them a call on 053-666-1432. That's 053-666-1432. Defend Drill, breathe easy, feel better. When we return, we've got more for you here on the program. Stay right there. You're welcome back, and of course, we are still live on X Spaces, on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on myjoyonline.com. This is the poll. Now, President Mahama says recent gains by the Ghanaian cedi have helped the country reduce its total debt burden by almost 150 billion cedis. Now, he says if the trajectory continues, the target of reaching 55 to 58% debt sustainability by 2028 will be reached by the end of the year. Now, speaking during a presidential session at the 60th annual meeting of the African Development Bank and the 51st annual meeting of the African Development Fund in Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire, he credited the debt reduction to key interventions rolled out by his government over the past 5 months. He says his government is also focused on boosting domestic revenue, fighting corruption, citing wasteful government expenditure, and ensuring better accountability in governance.
It's our bilateral creditors, and therefore it brought, one, the quantum of debt down, that's the size, but it also stretched out the repayment of the debt. That brought us down to about 75, 76% debt to GDP. Since then, we're left with just 3% of the debt. We've covered 97%. It's left with the commercial creditors who hold just about 3% of the debt. And once we do that, then it means that the whole debt restructuring has been completed. But like I said when I spoke at first, I said we need to put any credit that we take or any debt that we take into the most productive parts of our economy in providing infrastructure so that you can have a rate of return on debt. You must do smart borrowing, taking debt where you can create debt escrows so that the income for which you invested the credit can go to repay. For instance, expressways that are tolled where the toll revenues are escrowed so that they go to pay the expressway in 25 years or so. I think that these are the kinds of things that we should do. There are many examples. For instance, we built a first-class port, and that, again, did not sit on our public debt. We made our Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and their partners, Meridian Port Services, build the ports, which cost us about $1 billion, and that port is paying for itself, and that debt does not sit on our books. We built a new airport terminal we call Terminal 3, and again, we built it on the balance sheet of the Ghana Airports Company Limited. And so that project is paying for itself without sitting on our public debt. And so these are some of the innovative ideas that we need to introduce in order that our debts continue to be sustainable. But also increasingly, one of the push factors for the debt is the strength of the value of the local currency. Our debt continued to multiply because the cedi continued to grow weaker. And so you needed more cedis. Because our public debt is stated in cedis, the weaker the cedi becomes against the foreign currencies, the higher it pushes up your debt. Fortunately, some measures we put in place have recently begun to show results, and the cedi has been strengthening. And so we've reduced our total debt over the last 5 months by almost 150 billion cedis, which is very significant. And so if that trajectory continues, the target of reaching 55 to 58% debt sustainability by 2028 will be reached by the end of this year. And that means that it gives us fiscal space to begin to invest in the most productive sectors of the economy. But like I said, we need to look inward, boost domestic revenue, cut wasteful government expenditure, fight corruption, and introduce better accountability in governance. And that is what the focus of my administration.
Well, President Mahama also talked about the progress made in the local processing of Ghana's cocoa. He said the country has now reached about 40% in domestic cocoa processing and expressed optimism that Ghana could match or surpass Côte d'Ivoire's 50% processing benchmark within the next 4 to 5 years.
You notice that the world economic order is rigged against Africa. We can increase processing overnight, but you have non-tariff barriers in exporting into some of the markets. Unless they bring a processor from outside, from Europe, who comes and sets up a processing plant and gets all the regulatory things in place. An indigenous person setting up a processing plant sometimes has a very big difficulty exporting finished products into the EU market and into the American market. But I must say that we've made progress from a low of about 25% processed cocoa. Ghana has risen to about 40%, and I know Côte d'Ivoire is ahead of us. Côte d'Ivoire has done 50%, which is comfortable. And so 50% of Côte d'Ivoire's cocoa is processed domestically. Ghana is at 40%. We hope that over the next 4 or 5 years, we'll reach the stage of Côte d'Ivoire at 50% and push even further.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. We'll go next to Vice President Mpango. Your country has invested.
So that's President John Mahama in that ongoing board meeting of the Africa Development Bank and other matters relating to that. Now let's talk about education, because in a significant policy shift aimed at expanding access to secondary education and easing congestion in senior high schools, government has announced that private senior high schools will now be included in the government-free senior high school program as part of efforts to fulfill the campaign promise. The Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Clement Apak, during a news briefing on these new guidelines for school selection for BEC candidates, said the inclusion of the private sector into the senior high school program It's a strategic move to reduce the pressure on schools now and to support the eventual phasing out of the controversial double track system.
Let me state that as part of our campaign promise, we have been working very, very diligently to bring on board private senior high schools to participate in the delivery of the free senior high school program. Meetings have been held, engagements have been done, and we are very certain that with the diligence that we expect from our side and the eagerness of the private schools to participate, the private schools would deliver in their participation. We believe very strongly that in fulfilling this manifesto campaign promise, this is going to serve as an artery in helping us bring an end to what we all describe as the obnoxious double-track system.
And again, the Ministry of Education has reinstated the practice of school selection prior to the BECA, with the 2025 exercise fully commencing today, Tuesday, May 27, and scheduled to end on Friday, June 6, 2025. Now, in recent years, this policy had been abandoned, requiring students or candidates to choose their preferred senior high schools after writing the BEC. However, during a news briefing on the updated guidelines, coordinator of the Free Senior High School Secretariat, Sana Okitidua, announced a return to the pre-exam selection process and urged parents to take key interest in their awards school selection.
Indicated by the Honorable Deputy Minister, Honorable Clement Apak, the 2025 Basic Education Certificate Examination BEC candidates will be undergoing the school selection exercise. This all-important activity is starting today, Tuesday, 27th May, and ends Friday, 6th June 2025. Teams of officers from the Ghana Education Service, Ghana TVET Service, and Free Senior High School Secretariat have been deployed to various regions to begin sensitization of candidates, parents, and guardians, and the general public to the 2025 school selection guidelines. Our friends from the media, the public relation officers of the Ministry of Education, Ghana Education Service, and Ghana TV Service have also been deployed to undertake media engagements in the same regard. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's take note of the following modifications in the 2025 school selection process. Candidates who wish to enter SHS TVET schools must, with guidance from parents, guardians, and school authorities, select 7 schools in total, 5 main and 2 alternatives. Your 5 main schools should be ranked in order of preference, with the first being the most preferred choice. Your 2 alternatives should be selected from Appendix 3 for consideration, if not placed in any of your 5 main choices. Select programs and residential preferences for each of the schools: 3 boarding and 2 day. Candidates may select 1 Category B school as boarding and another Category B school as day. Candidates may also select 1 Category C school as boarding and another Category C school as day. Please note that candidates placed in any of their choices will not be changed, and I emphasize on that, will not be changed. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, also note that candidates
cannot choose more than one from category A. Candidates cannot select more than 2 schools from category B. Candidates may select all 5 schools from category C. 3 boarding, 2 day. As our Honorable Deputy said earlier, we have a lot of good schools in the category C. They have all the facilities, and we need to make good use of them. So we are encouraging parents to look at the category C column and choose schools for their children from the category C. Candidates who wish to offer pure TVET programs must select 5 TVET institutions from category A, B, C, using the same selection criteria as indicated earlier, as day or boarding. Candidates who wish to offer program choices about future job prospects, such as engineers, physicians, astronauts, etc., must select STEM sciences in all 5 choices from category A, B, C as day or boarding.
All right, so that's some kind of elaborate plan for the BEC and those who are seeking to enter the senior high school. Let's put this to some analysis. Joining me for a conversation is the Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch, Mr. Kofi Asare. Mr. Asare, always a pleasure to have you. Good afternoon. And of course, we also got the General Secretary of the Ghana National Association of Private Schools, Mr. Justice Ken Isel. Mr. Isel, good afternoon. Right. If you can unmute for me, Mr. Justice, but let me start with you, Mr. Kofi Asare. So you had the Free Senior High School coordinator, telling us what BEC candidates are expected to do regarding their enrollment to senior high school. Now, you would do the selection before the exam instead of what existed some few months ago, that you do the selection after the exam. Is this the best way to go? I remember when I completed BEC, I did the selection before going to SSS.
Well, that was the regular system until COVID, and then we had to change to a system where students selected their schools after writing the BEC. Now, this post-COVID system had challenges. The teachers kept complaining that it was difficult to get the students to return to school, to go through the school placement process after they have finished the BEC. And so it was a bit tedious for our teachers. And so I think that it is in the best interest of ensuring that both teachers and students go through a relatively, less stressful process of school placement. The reason why we are back to where we were pre-COVID. And so it is welcome news that teachers and students and parents can collaborate in selecting schools before BEC is written, when everybody is in school. It makes it easier. That is welcome.
Is that the only thing that must change? In terms of this government approach to reforming the overall education at the basic level?
Well, in terms of that might change, I thought we were talking about the pressure and what government is doing.
Right.
Let me indicate that the 15%, the slashing of the private school protocol allocation for category A placement, the slashing of the public junior high schools 30% protocol allocation for category A schools from 30 to 15%, which the 50% slash is also commendable, because the previous regime, even though it was intended to provide equity for students attending public basic schools who may not have had, good resources, learning environments compared to private schools, it ended up, appearing more as a discriminatory policy against private school students who are also Ghanaians, rather than it being an equity intervention for public school students. And so the slashing down of the protocol by half, I think, to a higher extent, mitigates that gap between implementing an equity-based policy for public schools, vis-a-vis not discriminating against private school students who are also Ghanaians and also deserve access to equal educational opportunities as provided for in the Constitution. So those two, I think, are commendable. Notwithstanding, let me quickly add that the first is that the challenges in the school placement, many of the challenges happen after the selection of schools. And so it's early days yet. We hope that the minister, the lady who was the official who addressed the media,
right, the FSHS coordinator,
will walk their talk, because the issue is about a meritorious school placement system where placement is based on merit. The issue is about the existence of corrupt practices in the school placement system where merit is relegated. That is the problem we are faced. And so the solutions or the assurances of change or resetting start with when we see that in implementing the guidelines, the ministry, the GES, CSSPS, they are all firm and ensuring that the guidelines they are provided are being diligently and implemented without fear or favor. That is the first issue. The second issue is about the governance architecture. And I'm surprised that nothing is being done. Look, in the past, the challenge we've had with the school placement system is that the governance system was quite incongruous.
Right.
And it didn't assure accountability, checks and balances. We have the Ministry of Education running the school placement system under the minister's office, or the Free Senior Secretariat responds to the minister. If the Ministry of Education is directly involved in policy implementation, who is there to exercise direct oversight? You see? And so that arrangement bled accountability. And that's why we had challenges in the past when it came to school placement, because the ministry is supposed to exercise oversight over agencies, each agency in implementing policy, rather became an implementer. So I was expecting the CSSPS to be leading this,
right?
To get assurance that something has changed. But here's the case where we are still using the Free Senior Secretariat to lead in the management of this thing. And so I think that we need to have a second look at this. Other than that, this incongruous governance arrangement will simply lead us to where we were in the past, where the Ministry of Education is a net implementer. If that happens, who is going to hold them accountable, the GES or who? So we need to have a conversation around the governance architecture of our school placement system. Other than that, we'll be limited in terms of the extent to which we can reset the system and make it more equitable, more responsive, and more fair and meritorious.
The other matter I just want to pick your brains on is, the challenges with the Free Senior High School program, inadequate feeding, money for headmasters to take care of the students has always been an issue. Even the issue of access and facilities to accommodate them. Now, government says I'm bringing in the private sector. Private schools will now participate fully in the Free Senior High School program. Your reaction to this?
Well, I think my understanding of what the deputy minister said is that it's not going to be this year. It's going to be next year, not next academic year, next year, which is next 2 academic years. I am aware that, and I'm saying that because it appears that there was some miscommunication over there. I'm aware that the government has been involved in talks with the Private Schools Association on that proposal. And I think it is cogent. It is cogent in the sense that the private schools have the capacity to absorb up to about 150,000 students, And if government is struggling to find funds to complete ongoing senior high school expansion projects, including abandoned ones, in order to end double track, and private schools have spaces sitting there, I think that it makes sense, in the short to medium term, for government to take advantage of that space, provided that government is focusing on providing support to the students and not to the school. Because the focus here It's the Ghanaian students who must enjoy secondary education and not necessarily the private school. So we have recommended to government that if it cares, a voucher system should be considered as one of the approaches where you give a voucher worth the same amount of money you are paying for a student who is in a public secondary school. So if government is spending 2,000 Ghana cedis on a public day secondary school student, you give a voucher to the same student if they select a private day secondary school. And then if they want to top up, they top up. So I think that it makes sense for government to collaborate with the private schools, make use of existing infrastructure, and then use it to end the double track in the medium term, in the short to medium term. In the long term, we should complete all ongoing projects and then make sure that our secondary education system is able to absorb all the within the public space.
Mr. Kofiasa, thank you so much. Let me allow Justice Ken Asiel, is General Secretary of the Association of Private Schools. Mr. Asiel, this must be good news for you. At least you get some dedicated funding from government. If you can unmute for me, Mr. Asiel, so we can hear you. Hello, Mr. Asiel. Well, we'll get his attention and bring him back on so that we can have this conversation. But we are talking about government decision to bring in the private schools to also take part in the PSHS program, and we are told that this will start someone next year. Yes, Mr. Asiel, I can hear you now. So,
I'm saying this is great news to our members. I mean, we're expecting government to keep to their word. The promise they gave us that they were going to include private PSHS. I think that is something that we have always looked forward to. We want to also say that this should give us also the opportunity to prove that we have always had a niche in trying to handle students that otherwise might find difficulty in going through the public school system. By and large, yes, we will still say that even in the past, there were some private school students who prefer to go to private schools because of double track system. And so eventually when that is phased out, it will bring a lot of relief to our parents, because what we are talking about right now, apart from the schools, is to care about their children and their future. And with the selection process, Kofi has just nailed it properly. The governance system should rest with the implementers and not with the ministry, so that we don't have a situation where we had in the past where the minister was supposed to be playing oversight responsibility will become the one hijacking the placement. And there are many things that were not too fine with the process, with the system before. We could just make it better. Let me once more say a big thank you to the minister for the good news that has been brought to us.
But I just want to understand, has there been any meeting between the private schools and government to work out the modalities? What are the fine details that you've committed yourself to?
So there have been some engagement with the minister and then also with the Ghana Education Service. And we got assurance. What we'll be doing, what actually we are still working on right now, is to agree on how much, like the Kofi said, what would be the voucher? What would it be like for students who are going to private schools? Are they going to bear the full cost of their tuition in the private sector, or they're going to give them equivalent of what they give to their public counterparts? Those are the fine lines we want to look at. Then concerning our selection process, we've come this way before, where you do the pre-selection before the examination. Then the thought that after writing your papers, you have a better idea as to whether you want to go to a category A school or a B or C, depending on your performance, wasn't a bad idea. So we consider selection before and after. When a child finishes writing his BEC and realizes that, I think that I'll be better off if I chose a comfortable C school than to struggle, I think it will give them the opportunity to make a better selection. We welcome the idea that, yes, you cannot do these selections without the consent of the children, and that's what we do in the private sector. We wait for better days end.
And then finally, I mean, you for the first time will be receiving quite a large number of students. You have the facilities to accommodate them.
Oh yes. There are quite a number of good private schools in the country. Yes, quite about 150. Comparing that to overcrowding public schools, which will be better. About 721 schools are in the private sector, with almost 700,000 BC candidates. Can you imagine the kind of load that is being placed on these few public schools? And so once we have schools and we have got equally very good schools, why not? We may not have the perfect situation in the beginning, but as we move along, we'll improve, because efficiency will never be excellent, but we'll improve and do and give the children a better kind of service.
All right, we'll leave it here for now. Justice King ACL is General Secretary of the Ghana Association of Private Schools. Now, let's talk about health, something also equally very important. The Ghana Health Service has confirmed 10 new cases of Mpox, formerly known as the monkeypox, bringing the country's total case count to 19. According to health officials, 5 of the confirmed cases are currently on admission and are receiving treatment. No fatalities have been recorded so far in the latest outbreak. Here is a breakdown from the Ghana Health Service. All right, so new confirmed cases 10, total 19, new deaths 0, total deaths 0, on admission 0 as well. So this is the latest information from the Ghana Health Service. Now, the Ghana Health Service has assured the public that it is actively monitoring the situation and has intensified its monitoring exercise to ensure that people who have contracted are identified and given the necessary attention regarding this Mpox disease. Well, let's see if we can get some understanding of what the situation is. Dr. Alfred Kwesi Menya is a senior research fellow, epidemiologist, and implementation scientist at the University of Health and Allied Sciences in Ho. Doctor, good afternoon and welcome to the program.
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for the opportunity.
So according to the Ghana Health Service records, we have 10 confirmed cases, bringing the total count to 19, but on admission is 0. Does it mean that people who have contracted it are receiving care at home, and are they not endangering other people who are close to them?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. The people who were identified through contact tracing, some were treated, and then those after treatment, they are free. And the 5 identified cases that are still on admission, they are going through the treatment. So per the Ghana Health Service protocol, after those people have gone through the necessary treatment, they are no more danger to the public, so they cannot be on admission.
All right. And so should I be worried about the way the numbers is increasing? Should I be worried that this may be widespread?
No, the public need not to be alarmed about this, because Ghana Health Service have a very robust system, especially when it comes to public health, and then when there is a disease like this, that the Ghana Health Service is capable of doing contact tracing. Early identification of the disease like this is what is critical, and that is exactly what Ghana Health Service have been doing. Identify the index case and has been able to follow up through contact tracing to identify those contacts. So I don't think we need not to be alarmed at all, because Ghana Health Service is in control, and then the appropriate public health structures are in place to be able to contain the situation.
And then evidence of pulse on the body, is that the only one, or the only thing that I should look out for to determine that person may need help, because that pulse may also mean something else?
Yes, that is not the only thing. If some of the symptoms include fever, severe headache, and then backache, muscle ache, if you are having any of those conditions, you have to quickly go to the nearest health facility for you to be checked. You don't have to wait till you're having those rashes all over your body before you go to the hospital. It is good that you report to anybody having any of this unusual severe headache, backache, and also unexplained fever. It is good you quickly go to the nearest health facility for you to be checked.
But are you happy with the level of public awareness on this by the Ghana Health Service?
Ghana Health Service has done a lot, and again, when you check on social media, you realize that they put a lot of information there. But I hope still a lot can be done in the general public by educating people about what to do, especially people who like a lot of bushmeat. You know, the disease is transmitted when you have contact with animals. And then from the literature, it's transmitted through contact with animal or bushmeat. So I think a lot more of education needed to be done to our people so that we'll be able to prevent the situation. But I believe strongly that Ghana Health Service is capable of containing the situation, so we need not to be alarmed.
Should there be total ban on the consumption of bushmeat, at least for now?
As an epidemiologist, I will suggest that we should be careful. Anybody should be careful in going for bushmeat at this time because it may not be very safe doing that.
And this should be across the country, not just to a specific location.
No, you will not be able to know which animal in the bush in your area is having the condition. So I will encourage that the consumption of bush meat, let's be careful with it anywhere within the country because you don't know which animal is coming from where and then we'll be having the condition.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that education this afternoon. On the matter of Mpox, the Ghana Health Service says that they've recorded 10 more, bringing the total count to 19, but nobody is on admission. There's not been also any recorded deaths resulting from Mpox. But the caution here is that be careful and watch what you eat. Now let's talk about education because at the Latimpa Basic School in the Northeast Gonja district, rising dropouts have turned teachers into door-to-door campaigners, moving through the community each day, pleading with parents to send their children to school. Emmanuel Jibeni report from Latimpa in our education series. Crumbling starts.
It's 10 a.m. at Latimpa, a farming community in the Northeast Gonja district of the Savannah region. Inside the junior high school, the silence is deafening. The classrooms are nearly empty. Here, teachers do not just teach, they beg. Every morning, they come through the village, knocking on doors, pleading with parents to let their children come to school.
Sometimes you can come, some years are there, they will come 2, 3. The others will remain in town. You have to go and talk to them and they will come. And they can come at any time. So for that one, I know for sure they will come. For coming, they will come because we will talk to them. We will talk to them, and for sure, God willing, they will listen to us. They don't see the importance of education. So after junior high, and even let me say that maybe the parents too don't see the need.
What we do is sensitization. That's what we do, education, massive sensitization, house to house. So I do go house to house, they know me. Then we will tell them the need for them to come to school, unless, if for nothing else, the civilization alone is something that's a promising. And that will be different from what we are experiencing now.
The attendance sheet tells a painful story. JHS 1's register has not recorded a single student weeks after school reopened.
Some decided to run away to other places. Others remain in town. So for now, they are yet to come because we are still talking to the parents to allow them to come. Because some are still in town, that they will not come.
In the previous term, the most consistent Form 2 students showed up just 32 times out of 60 days. Others barely made it for 20 days.
This small you are getting, if it is taken off again.
The teachers believe the reasons are many. but they all point to despair.
They see no reason, like a better practical reason why they should send their children to school. I want to say practically, like people who will be here for them to emulate, whether from the community here, they have an eye opener that they can see, that they will feel. Let me also allow my children to go to school, so they become either a teacher, a policeman, or this and that.
Also, they looking at the structure of the school. It is also another factor, because when you look at the structure, no one will tell you that even a serious child or a serious parent will not like to bring the child to the school. The windows, the doors, even the ground, no even furniture, no enough furniture. So there are a lot of factors.
The classrooms are in poor condition. There are no role models for children to look up to. And parents say their children can earn more carrying loads in cities than sitting in the classroom.
We're having an engagement with one parent over why he's not sending is preventing his child from coming back to school. He said that you said, what do you have? We'll be here every year. We'll farm our yams and we'll buy brand new motorbikes. And you, what do you have? Everything you've been posted to this community. But I did this old motorbike up to now.
I'm a professional teacher. I have to teach because I'm paid to teach. But you've come to school and there are no students. What are you teaching? So that alone can demoralize you. And it can let you lazy. So
we got more of this in subsequent bulletins and of course on our website, joeonline.com. Well, folks, that's our show for today. For more stories, log on to our website. But there's this breaking news coming in from the offices of Yoko. We understand that the Ashanti Regional Chairman of the NPP, Bernard Nchibu, also known as Wuntumi, has been detained at the office of Yoko. He was picked up at the police CID headquarters after he had reported himself based on the bail condition that is on him yesterday after appearing before the CID. That is what we are picking from now. We'll follow up on this issue and bring you more in subsequent bulletins. But there's more stories on joeonline.com. If you go there, that's Mahama Yariga proposing constitutional amendment or removal of Superior Court judges, plus some other stories. The Ghana embassy was closed down yesterday. Will be reopened on Thursday in the United States of America, capital of Washington, D.C. Folks, whatever you are up to in the hours ahead, I hope is profitable. Same time tomorrow, we shall be here to bring you the midweek edition of The Pulse. My name is Elton Brobe. Good evening and take care.